Hey, hello there, this is Ben with Studio on the Lake. This is part 3 of the snowy owl, the baby snowy owl. And that's where he's going to end up. And that's not going to be in this one, the painting part of it. I'll get to the white at the end of this one. So there is going to be one more video with the painting and whatnot going on. But he's looking pretty good, and he's not finished there yet. That's just one I had in the middle. So we left off where we were putting together or doing the feathers on the front side wing, and this is a diamond ball, and it sits in the iCube RAM micro power carver. It's about $275, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. I'm not real fond of it. It's got a little bit of vibration in it, a little bit too much for me, I think, and I'm hoping it's one of the cheaper hand pieces that RAM makes. I have taken it apart and looked at it. I don't see anything particularly different about it without getting out micrometers and that sort of thing and looking at various different parts. It has basically the same standard parts that all the hand pieces. So here's me with a diamond ball rounding over the feathers just prior to burning. You can see I've already put the nibs or the quills in the middle, and I like that round ball because that allows me to go in generally any direction that I want to go. Alright, so I'm going to clean it off a little bit, and you saw the feathers were burned up in the other portion, but the rest of these are ready to go. I got to admit, even though I've got it painted, I wished I had done a little less flat on that wing and made it a little more concave. So you've seen how the burning goes, and I'm not going to painfully run you through that again, because if you're following the series, but there's the one wing done, and I do like to do them in different sections. So here's me changing the collet, and this is what annoys me about not having two collets. I use two different sizes of burrs. One is an 1/8 inch, and it's about the biggest you can run on these, and the other is a 3/32. My diamond bits and hair stones and that sort of thing are 3/32. The ruby bits are 3/32. You can see the difference. The left one there is 1/8 inch. The one on the right is 3/32. So you got to change the collet each time that you want to change bits. That's why I like to run two hand pieces, because I'm too lazy to pull these collets out and put them back in. And now if this I've got locked, it will slide through the lock, and then it's got a little cheap nasty wrench that's a triangle shaped wrench. Comes with all of these hand pieces, and that's to tighten the one. You can see there's a big one on one side and a little bit smaller on the other. Now if you can't get this tight, what you have to do is you have to pull the nose piece off of this. Then there's a little T slot in the back of a plastic piece, and that will lock the hand piece and allow you to either take off one outer collet that's been frozen, or tighten it up. So far this has been working pretty good to get it tight without having to pull the nose piece off. If you pull these nose pieces off of these things, there's a spring and a cam of the quick locking portion and a couple of washers and various different brass pieces that if you're not real careful, you could drop or lose or get them out of order and spend the next hour of your life trying to put that head back on there. So to forgo all of that, in the past I have typically ran two hand pieces, and in one I'll run the 3/32 collets, and in the second one I'll run the 1/8 inch collets. And we're back to an 1/8 inch here, working on the base. You can see I've got a little bit of the foot carved out there, and I don't recall, I don't think I showed that, but I did that basically with a ruby bit and a diamond ball, and that may be in the very next video because I don't recall it being in this one. Here is my second favorite bits, and these are the two that I buy. The one's a regular ruby bit, and you can see that they're $13 and $11, and you can't get these from Cutsall or any place else. You just have to look up ruby bit, and I can't remember where I got them, Rocky Mountain Carvers or something like that. But that's my favorite. It's a flame, and it is actually quite aggressive. and but it will do fine sanding work. And then here's a smaller one that I like to use around there. These do eventually wear out, so I get about a year and a half, maybe 2 years use out of these, and eventually they will get down to the point where they're not doing anything but burning. So this is what I bought. This is what I reviewed, and I was trying to stay within the Ram line. I thought I'm not really liking this, and I was hesitant to go up, but I think this is what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with the Oz Elite. They also call it, it's got a Ram name, and they have the Oz Plus, 2 Plus, and then the Oz Elite is the newer line. So I think that's what I'll go with, and that's in the $600-700 range. And I will review that once that comes in. So you can expect to see that soon, and I'll let you know how I like that. I hope it works out good. That is a brushless one, and then I should be able to run that little ice cube as the second one. So we had the ice shed in the last one. You can see I've got a ruby bit in there. I've marked around the eyes there, around the face, and you can see that it's going in a circle. And the motion that I'm using with this now, I'm kind of cutting in feather lines. So I've got it down pretty much where I want it, and at this point I'm leaving little bumps, little imperfections, and then carving lines in there that I'll fix as I go further down. I'll do a little stone work on this, and then a little burning work. In the last video I mentioned a lot of folks, Uncle Kevin carves. Obviously the older one of that, Ryan Cook, and Ryan Cook's done a lot of carving stuff. He's got some neat stuff, but Uncle Kevin was on a Ryan Cook one, or actually Jordy Johnson went over and visited him. They were doing some owls. They crank out some nice owls, but Uncle Kevin carves, has a really neat yard working through, and he does primarily chainsaw stuff. He's a professional chainsaw carver and artist, but he does some smaller detail stuff too. Ryan Cook is primarily a chainsaw guy, but he does a lot of detail work with standard carvers, kind of like Jordy does, the Fordham and various different things. So check him out. Obviously Jordy Johnson. And I forgot all about Just Carve Rob. Sorry, Rob. But Rob's in that group with Jordy and I, and goofing around, and Mark the Maker, and all those guys. Their links are down below. And then also go over and check out Stennett Sticks. Mike over at Stennett Sticks. He does some beautiful stuff in there. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a whole bunch of people. Yeah, old school Gene Messer. Gene is one of the guys that started all this YouTube stuff for the rest of us. And you owe it to go check him out on his stuff. He's an excellent caricature carver, kind of the godfather of the whole thing. And he doesn't get into this messy power carving. He does old school with knives, and we'll show you how it's done for sure. So you can see that ruby bit. I am going around the nose, and I call it a nose for lack of, it's a beak. The beak sticks out on the bottom on the end, and the feathers on this thing, when you look at a reference, they kind of spin up around the beak in a circle, and it's a little bit hard to do. You can't just go in one direction. This stuff swirls back around down through the eyes there. You can see I did shorten that beak up, and now I'm doing the little feather detail that's inside there, and I will come back with a stone, the only stone actually that I have, which reminds me I need to order some. I've got a bandsaw coming in. I'm still looking for a contractor. Got requests out for bids on the building. If I don't get someone here in the next month or two, I might end up building it myself. I don't want to. Don't have the time for that. But it needs to get done before the winter for sure. So I'm doing the whole face, and you can see kind of a little stroke, and I'm staying with the reference lines that I put in there. And this is, I can't remember if this was real time. It kind of looks like real time. I actually do kind of go that fast with the burr. Yeah, that's real time, because if I look at it, when I do double time, it looks like I'm hyperventilating. You see my stomach moving back and forth a lot of times, and that's the way we have to do with the shot. I've got the one more on this one. I'm not going to get that up this week. It'll probably be early next week before I get that video up on the final on this guy. I am going to do the whole painting series, I decided, and show you how far this thing has to go for the painting, and what a pain in the butt it really is. But on the intern, I'm working on one now, and I was sitting there last night in the condo and just thought I should do a video on how to get started in carving and what you need. Seeming as how I've got a lot of that material available now. There is a stone. That's the only stone I've got. It's just a ceramic cylinder, and I just use the very tip of it. And for some reason, the stones make a really nice clean cut, and they allow you to do in feather lines or hair lines. A lot of carvers use these for hair. And for some reason, they make little wedge-shaped diamond bits that a lot of people use, and I don't like them because they seem to put too fine a line in there, if that makes sense. This the edge of a stone you can reshape, and then depending on how you pull that, you see I'm kind of doing a little kind of almost a little S or a J hook, and I'm still following those reference lines that I drew in a radial circle around each eye. So those eyes are Tohican glass eyes, and if you're curious to go there, you can get in any size. It's a taxidermy eye company, and if you do the reference research, for example, I'm getting ready to do a raven, so I would look up anatomically a raven's eye color, size, and shape, and it would tell me 14 millimeter or 12 millimeter. Black, hazel, whatever, some kind, and then a certain type of pupil. And then I would go to Tohican glass eyes and order a set of those. Now they're not cheap, but to me they're not necessarily that expensive either. I think these were $12, and they're larger. They're like I forget, 22 millimeter or 19 millimeter, which is a lot larger, and they're called spherical, meaning that they've got a little bit of feather banding on the inside of the yellow there. You can see that if you use your imagination right above where I'm using that stone right now. You can see how the outer portion of that's kind of banded. If you've not subscribed to the channel, I hope you would to see, and then go back and look at some of the other videos, and then to see the future videos. But you know, if you are a subscriber, that I prefer to use the glass eyes and stuff. I can carve eyes, but I don't like them as well, even at the best that I can do, which is not bragging, but not too shabby, with the blending and the whole 9 yards, and then putting a lacquer over it, building the lacquer up to a depth. I still can't get as nice an eye as if I were to inset a glass eye. And to me, if I'm going to spend 4 to 10 hours on a carving, I don't want to settle and be cheap and not spend another $6 or $7 or $10 for glass eyes. Because to me, they make all the difference in the world. You can kind of see in that last section there, hopefully I'll turn this thing around again. There's where the hairs on the nose go in all different directions. And this will really read through the paint now. And the next one I'm gonna, when I do the finish work on this, those, I'm going to put an eyelid in there, and that's why I'm not going right up to the glass eye. There you can see the spherical banding in there. See how that yellow has little lines of black lines, and is not consistent in an oval. But this is a really good example of stoning, and if I were to stone something and then burn the exact same thing, I could almost get the same effect with the stones that I get with the burning. And obviously the stoning is a lot quicker than the burning. Like I stoned I'll burn some of the front of this, but there you can hopefully see, yeah, it's not too bad. You can get the detail that's going into that character. So I wanted to leave everything in this, and I know a little bit of it's redundant on the feather work, but here's the finished portion of the feather on the other wing, and then I believe I do the tail on this one. I'm not sure, but the next one will finish the front of the body, blending everything all together, and fixing that, putting an eyelid over top of it, and then carving. I noticed the foot is not on the rock on the bottom, but here's I think there's 2.5 times the speed. If only it went this fast, right? This seems like a lot of work when you're watching this, and just keep in mind that this is probably 8 hours, maybe 10 hours in this character, and that's not too long for me, because I do this because it's relaxing and it's something to do, and I do it in 2 to 3, 4 hour sessions. And there's the one over the world. There's that mini ruby bit, and I'm contouring these prior to burning in, and this is where the feathers are going to match underneath the head and the ruff there. And I think in probably just a minute, if I recall, when I did the editing, I'm going to go to ludicrous speed. Yep, there we went to ludicrous speed, and I'm just showing you how I get to the point where I burn. And that's shaping each of those feathers and lining them out. They are not uniform. We've talked about that before. They could be a little more uniform than they are, but I like the way this looks, so I'm just going to ignore it and leave it alone and not give it too much thought. As Jordy would say, I don't care. Do you care? Does anybody care? Sorry, Jordy, man, I had to bust on you. Hey, I know I said in the last one, I got the saw coming in, and I still haven't got an update on it, but we'll get some basswood in your direction pretty soon. I love Jordy's new intro on that, and he's got a lot of stuff that's going on in the background, a lot of chainsaw carving that he's been doing lately, so I got to get some basswood to him to get him back down to earth with the rest of us. I am looking at a chainsaw with a carving bar on the end of it, and I can't really decide which one I want. I waffle around. First I'm thinking I want a 201C, and then today I got sidetracked, and I'm thinking maybe an electric still with a carving bar on it. And I thought about a battery one, and I thought, why? I'm not going to be away from the studio or away from power if I'm carving something. I just want to do the same old stuff the rest of these guys are doing, the dragons and stuff a little bit bigger. I've got a lot of wood around to do that, and I think I'm leaning now towards a corded 120, and I can't remember, MSE 120. Of course, the problem with still saws, and those are the ones I prefer and use, and I know Husqvarna is as good as are a few other versions, is the way they deal with them. You have to go through a dealer, and it's a pain in the butt sometimes when you're doing that. It's kind of like those of you like Rob over at Just Carve Rob. He does a lot of automotive work. There's and we're getting ready to go to that diamond, and it's a ball, meaning I can go in any direction, and this is at ludicrous speed, and I'm just rounding everything over and contouring it down in just prior to burning, and this will actually help give little bumps in the burning. But anyway, back to it. There was a time when you could change a starter in a car, and then 10 or 15 years ago, stationed in Germany, I wasn't interested in driving the older Mercedes and the older BMWs, and the reason was you can't even change a starter. You have to have a special tool to remove a plate that they put over the starter to keep you from getting in there. And kind of like when they started putting Torx screws and weird headed screws in things so that do-it-yourselfers and quick fixers weren't able to fix it. You had to actually take it back to the factory to get fixed. Of course, nowadays, most of you know that play around with cars, you wouldn't want to get anywhere near working on an electric car. The voltage and the amperage, I guess the amperage being more important in those things, is crazy high, and it'll kill you fast. I mean, the old days, the only thing you had to really worry about was sticking your hand in a fan belt, or getting your long hippie hair stuck in a belt or the fan, or whacking. And in that case, all you lost was a big chunk of hair, or you lost a finger or part of a hand. Nowadays, you end up fried. Of course, like everything else, I could rebuild the studio. Two problems with that: one, I don't have the time to do that, and number two, I'm not sure I've got the energy anymore and want to do that. It'd be a lot more fun to gripe at a contractor because some little imperfection that I would have blown off. So there's the nibs in fast speed going down. And I'm just doing the one side, and I am tilted a little bit to the side. This is probably 2.5 times maybe. There's the second side. We've talked about before how I don't get real wrapped up about making those perfect, because when I come back in and burn the feathers on either side of that quill or barb, I can touch the edge of that quill with the side of the pen or the tip of the pen and straighten it out, so I don't have to have a rock steady hand here, and we're not dealing with brain surgery. Calmness in your hands. So upcoming projects, I got plans to do a great horned owl. I really need to do the raven, because people have been asking about the raven, and that reminds me, I need to text my son, who's south of us here. He has a raven that I did probably 15 years ago, and I'd ask him to bring that up so I could show you that, and last time he forgot it. So I'll see if I can't get him to bring that up when I do the raven. Obviously, there's going to be one more of these with the snowy owl, the baby owl, and then I think I'll do the raven and then switch gears and do a great horned owl, an actual life-size one. If I break down and buy these chainsaws, this chainsaw for chainsaw carving, you may see my first chainsaw carving come out, and I'll blame it on Jordy and Uncle Kevin Carves and Ryan Cook and all those knuckleheads doing stuff with the chainsaw. I'll give it a shot. Nothing like confusing your style. The only one that's just smart out of this whole group, near as I can tell of the carvers that I follow anywhere, is Gene Messer. Gene, I'm sure he watches a little bit of my stuff, I know, because I see a comment from him every now and again. But again, he's the smartest of all of us. He doesn't let all this new crap that we're doing hinder what he's doing. He takes out his knife and carves another brilliant character. He hasn't picked up a chainsaw. He doesn't have a power carver, as far as I know. And he doesn't do any of this fancy stuff that us younger generation. I shouldn't say that, because I'm not part of the totally younger generation. But once you got a good thing, go and stick with it. But I'm weak. These guys are sucking me into the chainsaw work, and it might be fun to play around with. And that's the whole purpose of all of this stuff, is to have fun and have something to occupy your time. It's neat when you come up with something that other people like, that's a little bit artistic. So there's that ruby. You can see it does a pretty nice job of cutting, but it leaves a real nice, a smooth, almost sanded finish. You don't have to sand. So there's the tip of the wing tips. This is not, as I've said, anatomically correct. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 feathers on there. That probably wouldn't be too far off, but I don't know without it. And then I'll round those over. The tip of those first 2 or 3 that are on the right there will have a barb sticking out, because a little bit more of the feather will be showing, the whole feather. Whereas as they get down a little bit further towards the bottom there, all you're going to see is basically one side of a feather sticking out from underneath another one. You can, if you're not producing these things and trying to finish these things up, so someone can, as a teaching video, which I'm trying to do here, you can take a lot of time and really get down into the nitty-gritty on the detail. So I decided to leave this portion on the tail in real time. For those of you that are jumping in the middle of the stream here, that's a heavy-duty pen. It's from PJL Enterprises. I like them. The tips are fixed and permanent. They're soldered in there with silver solder. When you wear this tip out, you can send the whole pen back to Pat over in Minnesota, and he will put any model of tip of his, I don't know, hell, he's got probably 50 or 60 tips in there. You just tell him what you want put back in the pen, and he will put a new foam heat piece on the end there for you. And the pen itself is probably $20 with a tip in it when you initially purchase it. And when you send them back to him, you'll be out the shipping, but he'll do it for, last I checked, was $7. So that's a pretty good bargain. I don't know when the last time you could get anything done. Heck, you can't even buy a meal at McDonald's for $7 nowadays. So I'm coming back to the other end, and I do have to, every time I see this and I'm watching and doing the voiceover, I think how many lines per inch in there. And I don't know, one of these days I got to count. I would probably do it right now, but I don't have this piece down here in Iowa where I'm sitting at, and I won't be back up north until Thursday, later in the week. This is a Sunday, bad weather day, and I'm recording a voiceover on this at work, so getting paid for doing nothing, basically. So that is real time. And I find this very relaxing. It's kind of like drawing with a pencil. Or doodling. I think one of the things that's interesting, my wife said one of the things that she liked about me when we first met, and we were young, and we worked in the restaurant industry, but we'd go to Denny's or something and sit and talk, and I never realized it, but I always had a pen, and I'd take a napkin and doodle and draw silly crap on a napkin. So I think all of us have some sort of artistic thing that we want to mess around with. We'll leave the judgment of the quality to other folks. You don't get to judge your own work. You just do it. And if people like it, that's pretty cool. And if they like it enough to buy it, that's even cooler. But the main thing is that you like doing it. You see, interesting, and I'll try to make this a quick story because this is getting ready to come up the end. My grandfather was a rancher for many, many years, and old school cowboy, rode horses the whole 9 yards. When he retired and sold the ranch, all of a sudden he bought a little drill press, a Dremel, and started making wagons, old school wagons, and old school haying and farm equipment that he remembered when he was a kid. And he built a stagecoach and put harnesses and the horses and the whole 9 yards on. They now sit in a museum in Harney County, Oregon. But he spent 5 or 6 years before he passed away making wagons, and it was something that nobody had any idea that he even desired or knew anything about. So that just goes to show you, a lot of times we don't get into art until we have nothing and we retire. So there is going to be about the end of this first one, and you can see I've got the body, the back of the head, and some eye work to do yet, and you'll get that in the fourth video. I kind of thought we'd get away with 3. Here's a little bit of a way ahead towards the end of the next one. That's the first coat of white that I put on him. And each time I put a coat on there, I paint right over the eyes, and then I take a knife and scrape those off. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what's going to happen in the next video. Obviously, the front gets contoured, the claws get carved, the tail gets carved, and it gets all blended together. I kind of like the way he's turning out. I'm not 100% happy with him, but all in all, he's turning out to be a nice little piece. So thanks a lot. This has been Ben with Stuart on the Lake. I'll see you on the next one.